So the story of the Octavius. The story opens in 1761 with the Octavius docked in the port of London to take on a cargo destined for China. This majestic sailing ship left port with a full crew, the skipper and his son and wife. This one. They arrived safely in China and unloaded their cargo. They headed back to sea once she was loaded with goods destined for British shores, but as the weather was unusually warm, the captain decided to sail home via the Northwest Passage, a voyage that at the time had not yet been accomplished. This was the last that anyone heard of the vessel, her crew, or her cargo. The Octavius was declared lost. On October 11th, 1775, the whaling ship the Herald had worked the frigid waters off Greenland when it spotted a sailing ship. On nearing the ship, the crew saw that the ship was weather-beaten, the sails were tattered and torn and hanging limply on the mast. The captain of the Herald ordered a boarding party to search the vessel, which they had determined was the Octavius. The boarding party arrived on deck to find it deserted, and they broke open the ship's hatch and scrambled down the ladder onto the semi-darkness below, where a terrifying sight met their eyes. They found the entire 28-man crew frozen to death in their quarters, and in the captain's cabin they found the captain seated at his desk, pen in hand, with the ship's logbook open on the desk in front of him. The inkwell and other everyday items were still in their place on the desk. Turning around, they saw a woman wrapped in a blanket on the bunk, frozen to death, along with the body of a young boy. The boarding party was terrified. Grabbing the ship's log, they fled from the Octavius. In their mad flight, they lost the middle pages of the logbook that were frozen solid and came loose from the book binding. They arrived back on the Herald with just the first and last pages of the logbook, which were enough for the master of the Herald to determine at least part of the story of the voyage. The captain of the Octavius had tried to navigate the Northwest Passage, but his ship had become imprisoned in the ice of the Arctic, and the entire crew had perished. The ship's last recorded position was 75 north, 160 west, which placed the Octavius 250 miles north of Barrow, Alaska. As the Octavius had been found off the coast of Greenland, it must have been broken loose from the ice at some stage and completed its voyage through the passage to come out on the other side where it met the Herald. The crew of the Herald were frightened of the Octavius and feared that it was cursed, so they simply left it adrift, and to this day it has never been sighted again. So another version of this is that in 1761, a sailing ship named the Octavius departed London bound for China. Having safely arrived at her destination about a year later, she departed China in 1762 and headed towards the Arctic. This is the last her crew has heard from ever again. It was assumed that she had been overtaken by the Arctic and was lost along with her crew. So the tale of the doomed ship picks back up October 11th, 1775, when a whaling ship called the Herald stumbled across the Octavius floating aimlessly off the coast of Greenland. When the ship answered no hails, the crew sent a boarding party aboard, and much to their surprise, the Octavius discovered the bodies of the crew and passengers all frozen solid below decks, as if trying to escape the cold. The crew found the captain's of the ship sitting at his desk, and he was midway through finishing a log entry from November 11th, 1762, 13 years earlier. In his cabin, there was also a dead woman, a dead boy covered with a blanket, and a dead sailor with a tinder box. The boarding party took only the captain's log before leaving the vessel, and because they were unwilling to search it, the ship with her crew and cargo had been adrift for almost a decade and a half. According to the legend, it was eventually discovered in the log that the captain had gambled on making a quick return to England from the Orient via the Northwest Passage. The year had been extremely hot, however, upon reaching the Arctic, Somewhere above Canada, the ship had become trapped in the ice. The crew lasted some time till the cold and dwindling provisions sealed their fate. The terrified crew of the Herald, fearing of a curse and wanting nothing to do with the ship, left it abandoned, touching nothing, and neither the Octavius or her ghostly crew had ever been seen again. If this tale is true, that would mean that Octavius had completed its passage to the Atlantic as a ghost ship. The ship's last logged position puts it at about 250 miles north of where it was now Barrow, Alaska. And the Harrow had found her adrift off the coast of Greenland. And this would actually mean that the Octavius and her crew were the first ship to make the transit, and this feat would not be reaccomplished by a living crew until 1903 to 1906, when Roald Amundsen completed the passage. So, this has been your host, Luke. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe for more. Hope you have a good night. Thanks for watching.